If I'm close, you can't hear me. Alex, you can't hear me when I'm close. Come on over here. There's a seat right here for you, Alex. Right here. Okay, so let's address the elephant in the room. The Stonehouse does close at 9:30 tonight. No, let's address what actually is going on. For those of you who aren't aware, this is the reality. Chief Jeremy Paris and Sheriff Jim Freihoff are totally aware. They are amazingly good guys. Please ignore all rumors and let them do their job. There are conflicting reports about Paul Kessler's death, and there are a lot of witnesses, and those witnesses have conflicting reports. This puts the police in a very challenging situation. They did interview Paul before he died. He was conscious. So please let Jim and Jeremy, let the police chief and the sheriff do their job. Okay? And do not overreact. That's number one. Number two, stay away from these demonstrations. As most of you know, I sent an email on Saturday night. Don't go to these kind of things. There's no purpose. You're not going to change anyone's mind. All that's going to happen is violence. Whether it's verbal or physical, all that's going to happen is violence. Please do not do that. Number three is be prepared. Always be situationally aware, but be prepared. It is I shouldn't say probably. It may very well get very ugly, very fast, because about an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago, not the police, but a newspaper in England released the name of the suspect that the police have and where he works. Stupid. So what could happen potentially, God forbid, is either a Jewish vigilante, or, which is going to cause hate on Jews, or a non-Jewish vigilante wanting to blame it on Jews. And either way, guess who gets blamed? Jews. And that's the topic for tonight. So I really want to encourage everyone to just slow down. Think the long term. This is not a short-term issue. This is a long-term issue. Please, please, please don't buy into misinformation. Only accept what the police and the sheriff have. I can vouch for both Sheriff Freihoff and Chief of Police Perez. They're good men. They're going to do the best they can to make sure justice is served in the right way. Okay? So I think that's really important. Is that you back there, Mike? You can vouch what he was saying yesterday. These are good guys. Okay? Please, please, please. When I see Roger with a staff, I think he's going to hit me. So please, please, please. Please, please remember that. Stay calm. Do not pass along misinformation. All that ever should be passed on is what they would like to be passed on. Anything else makes their job more difficult. I also want you all to remember about something, that they are being very cautious and careful. God forbid they don't have real proof that this man, the suspect, did something, and they charge him. Because if he gets acquitted, then the media is going to say, see, the Jews over-exaggerated again, like they always do, including on October 7th. Or if he gets convicted, they're going to say, see, the Jews control the legal system. Let them do their job so we do not get placed in a catch-22. Okay, please. All right? And if you have any questions, you can always email me or call me. But please, please, let's try and at least be a light for joy, a light for peace, a light for calmness. And if you're really, really angry and you're saying, Rabbi, that's great, but I really want to shoot somebody, then I encourage you to remember the words of my departed brother of blessed memory, who said, Michael, when you're angry, count to 10. You aim better. Okay? So please, all joking aside, please, please, that was for one specific doctor. So please, please, yeah. So we're going to talk about anti-Semitism. We're going to get, I want to go through the history a little bit. We're going to go skip some things, but I do want to go through why we are where we are, and then get to what the issue is, and get into the issues of Hamas and Palestine. Just to be clear before we start, anti-Semitism did not start in Westlake Village. It did not start in America. It did not start with the Palestinians, the Arabs, or even Muhammad. And we need to be clear about what has caused it, what's led to it, and what we can do about it. We also need to be clear, if you have not read it, I have excerpts in here from it. Anyone makes any comment about Palestine or Hamas, you have quotes in here from the Charter, the Covenant of 1988, we will get to it, which is the Charter of Hamas, which is pretty clear. They're not interested in a two-state solution. They're not interested in peace. They're interested in every Jew being, in their words, obliterated, and every piece of land being devoted to Allah and Muslim. They're part of the Muslim Brotherhood in their own preface. Okay? So when someone says to you, it's fine in Palestine, it's, you know what? Show them this and have a conversation. All right? Who wants to begin reading at the front of the page? Come on, we're going to read loudly. We're going to do quickly. Don't make me call on a bunch of people. It'll make me cranky.
Well, there are multiple examples. There are multiple examples of anti-Semitism in the ancient world. The vast majority of it was rooted more deeply in persecuting a tribe that lost war or was conquered, as opposed to the deep-seated hatred that becomes more visible over the last 2,000 years. If this is something you wish to explain, take a look at the writings of Flavius Josephus as an original source. For this reason, we begin this history with the advent of Christianity.
Okay, this is the first piece to understand. Anti-Semitism is a hate that mutates. It is the only hate, the only prejudice in the world that has gone on for this long and is based on nothing other than a hate. There's no acquisition of land. There's no, even the Nazis, they lost money by doing what they did. This hate has been inbred for 2,000 years. And we need to understand the roots of it before we can fight it, before we can conquer it. Okay? First piece. We're going to go very quickly. Go, Rick, go.
Early Christianity. The followers of Jesus in the first century were called Jewish Christians. These followers were apoplectic in their attitudes and preaching, believing that the world...
Okay, I'm going to interrupt the different points and just sort of synopsize, because I realized after I created the handout that it's 19 pages single-spaced, and that Stonehouse does close at some point tonight. Plus, most importantly, tomorrow night, where are you all going to be? Please be at the Mormon Church at 7 o'clock. We had planned this before Paul had been killed. It's an interfaith prayer service and concert that will be in memoriam and remembrance of Kristallnacht. Kristallnacht is the night that the Holocaust began.
Which Mormon church?
One on Westlake Boulevard, right over here, on Water Court. Okay? Watergate, I'm sorry. That has bad memories for me, that. So please, 7 o'clock tomorrow. It is important. Bring everyone you can. It is so important to be there, to pray as different people of faith, and to pray and understand what Kristallnacht is. Because if you're not clear yet, we're closer to the Holocaust right now than any of us have been in our lifetimes. Okay? So, synopsis of the first page. Jesus was this rabbi. Okay? So for those of you who don't know, he was this long-haired rabbi. Walking on coffee. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so Bob liked it. So I liked it. The two guys that counted liked that one. So he's this rabbi, and he's accepted by certain people. Early Christians, they're called Christian Jews. They believe that he is the Christ. They believe he's the Messiah. He's resurrected. And those early Christians were persecuted by the Jewish establishment. Please be honest about this. The Jewish establishment 2,000 years ago persecuted the followers of Jesus. No questions about it. Did they kill Jesus? That's a whole other issue. There are a number of things that would lead that, whether they were involved, with Caiaphas and his team were involved, that may very well be, but we know they couldn't have had a court date during Passover, so there couldn't have been a court date, as an example, when they choose Jesus to be killed as opposed to the thief. So, but it doesn't matter. The early Christians are persecuted by the Jewish establishment at the time. Those early Christians, when they write the Gospels, which are written, 65 to 200 years after Jesus' time, give or take, right? Somewhere in there, are written not by Mark and Matthew. They're written by people in their school. Just like everything written by Hillel or Shammai is not written by Hillel or Shammai, the Talmud. It might have been written by their students. And much of that writing is done as a polemic against the Jewish establishment of the time. So much of the Gospels is blaming the Jewish establishment because they're angry because they've been persecuting the Christians. And so the Jews get blamed for killing Jesus. I didn't even know the guy, okay? And I'm blamed for him. So we need to understand that. The document, if we turn to page 2, and you guys can all take these home, the document of the Christian scriptures is actually called the Brit Chadash. It means new covenant. The idea is the old covenant was the circumcision done with Abraham. There's a new covenant, and that becomes the covenant of accepting Jesus into your heart as a Messiah. Now imagine that you're a pagan, okay? And Bob and I come up to you, all right? We say, we're going to say this. Robert,
Yes.
we both come up to you and say, there's multiple Greek gods. It makes no sense, okay?
Right.
And I say to you, but you can believe in one God. You can be a Jew. No more pork. No more shellfish. Oh, and by the way, we're going to cut off the foreskins. He comes to you, and what do you say to him?
Well, we don't have to cut off that foreskin.
You see,
He's gonna like that.
first, accept Jesus into your heart, and right?
Right.
Who are you going to go to? He
Keep
eats
the
better.
extra inch.
Thank you. He eats better, and it's a little bit less painful, right? So we have this new covenant that is established at that time. All right? I'm trying to go very quickly through the first few pages. There are, by the way, a number of different texts. They're all in here, not all of them, but a number of them in here, about Jesus. He is mentioned in the Talmud. But we get accused of killing God in these Gospels. Deicide. Okay? This creates a problem. Because if I killed a deity, then I should not survive, let alone thrive. Moreover, if I kill a deity, that means that I'm on which side of the table of the Mechitza? Okay? Am I on the good side, or am I on the side with Satan and all the bad guys?
Same.
Okay. So now we're associated, because we have committed deicide, we become associated with the concept of evil and of Satan. Okay? So this is the basic setup that we're going to have. So one, please. Rick, you were doing well. Can you go to page 3 where it says deicide and start reading there? Actually change that.
Based on the words of Paul.
Yeah, that's fine.
Based on the words of Paul, as well as the quotes above, and a response to the anti-Christian sentiment of the Jewish establishment of the first century, Jews are defined as people who not only rejected the Messiah, but were responsible for his death. In 167 CE, in the era of Sardis, an era where the Jews and Greeks interact daily, a tractate entitled Parapasha on the Pesach, discovered in 1940 and written in Syrian Aramaic, although attributed by many scholars as a pseudo-photographic
Written by somebody else who claimed that name.
text written in the Middle Ages, transforms the idea of Jews killing the Messiah into the idea of Jews killing God, known as deicide. God has been murdered.
Remember, originally he's talked about being the Messiah. Now he's being called God, not just Mashiach. And so now we've not just killed Messiah, we've killed God. Go on.
God has been murdered. The king of Israel has been put to death by an Israelite right hand. St. John, the Archbishop of Constantinople, makes this charge of deicide a cornerstone of his theology and his first known user of the term. The concept of deicide as a foundation stone in Christian theology defines the Jews as personification of evil.
Everyone seeing that? You killed God. Now we've started this history, this concept, this mythology that the Jews are siding with, we're evil personified. Let's turn to the next page, page 4. Someone please read what it says, that because of this, right, since no reasonable human being would choose evil over good if presented clearly with the choice, since the Jews did not only choose evil, but chose to kill God, as a result, in the form of Jesus, as a result, the Jews must be the emissaries of Satan. Everyone with that?
Yes.
Okay, everyone. Does everyone see how this all ties together so far?
Yes.
Okay. Someone quickly start reading the next part about blood libel. Jeff,
Okay,
what a great
Scientists
help, Francine.
say-
Go.
Okay, the blood libel. Using human blood in any way is specifically prohibited throughout the Torah, especially in the book of Leviticus, among other chapters. this prohibition is one of the reasons meat must be salted on a slanted table in order to be kosher. Salt draws out the blood.
Right? Kosher meat's always salty because we're not allowed blood. No kosher steak tartare. Okay, go on, quick.
Okay.
Go.
Human sacrifice is specifically forbidden throughout the Hebrew scriptures, including Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Jeremiah, Kings, and more. It is something that is clearly stated to separate the Jews from the pagans and is a reason for excommunication, punishment, and even the death penalty. Socrates, Scholasticus, a 5th century church historian, reports that, quote, Jews in a drunken frolic bound a Christian child on a cross in mockery of the death of Christ and scourged him until he died.
Okay, so, first of all, are we allowed to do human sacrifice?
No.
Yes. Absolutely. We'll try and yell it. So, summarize. So, in Judaism, you cannot have anything to do with blood. You cannot have meat that has any blood in it. That's why Jewish kosher meat is salted meat. It's also very salty, pastrami, etc. We must draw the blood out. Blood's forbidden. Okay? Sacrifice, forbidden repeatedly in the Torah. Rats are forbidden. Jesus.
These are raccoons.
The raccoons?
Well, they're going to get cranky with it.
Whoa!
Yeah, they're gonna... Go.
We got good.
They're Goyser raccoons. Anti-Semitic bastard. Get out of there.
That was the first.
Go, run,
You don't want to piss off a raccoon.
run, be gone. Yeah, just poop on the good. Get out of here. All right. Yeah, that's it. All right, so this side. Puff. Everybody puff. Okay. Yeah, don't frick me off. Okay, so blood is forbidden, sacrifice is forbidden, but starting in the 5th century, there comes this concept that possibly Jews like to scourge Christians. So
They're listening.
It's only where you're standing.
Of all nights, we got raccoons.
It's a sign. Everybody's listening. It's like the bunnies.
Oh, yeah.
I get pooped on by everybody, don't I? Okay, so
There's a whole family. You're like Solomon. You're talking within a bunch of them. Keep going.
could you guys please move over that way, please? Please? That way, to stand. Go there. All right, so in 1144 in Norwich, should I just summarize this so we get a little bit farther? Would that be easier for you guys back there? Yes? Okay. All right. In 1144 in Norwich, England, I need my flashlight too. You have this circumstance that is really pretty horrible, where this young boy disappears named William. William is what are you, Jesus? Get out! So you have this young boy named William. William disappears. This is right before Easter, right before Passover. It's all at the same time. In 1144 in Norwich, England, the local priest gets up and says, what happened to the little boy William? He says that the Jews must have the matzah, that every year before Passover, a group of Jews get together and decide what local little Catholic boy needs to be sacrificed because they need the blood for their matzah. Okay? And so what do we have? We have what's called the blood libel, that Jews need blood to make their matzah. This is perpetuated by a number of other priests. Now remember, the middle-aged people, the Catholics, do they read? How do they know what the Bible even says? The local priest tells them. Okay? Have you ever noticed that I give, that when teaching, I always give lots of big handouts? Because I don't want anyone to say, how come I never heard that? You pulled it out of your talk. Mark and I know a rabbi who often would just make up stuff and say the Talmud says. True, Mark? Okay? And it's very disturbing when you realize he was full of chazar. Okay? So I give real serious handouts. The priest in 1144 say point blank that the Jews need blood for matzah. This means that we drink blood. Okay? Now I want to understand that that's the first piece of it. It's called the blood libel. So now we killed God, and we're obviously associated with the devil because we drink blood. Okay? What happens then? I don't have a flashlight, so I can't really see. Does anyone else have a light? Obviously the raccoon. Okay. There, we'll just do it. I can't get it. Okay. So now we drink matzah, we killed God, and then you have this concept that comes down. How many of you read Hebrew? How many of you know how Hebrew is written or read? In Hebrew, you have letters, and you have the vowels underneath. In the Torah, there are no vowels. That's why it's more difficult to read or chant. You need to know what's being said. You need to understand the context. Okay? So, I could say that Alex's name is, if I know it when I know the vowels, I would say it's Alex. If I don't, I may say it's Luxi. Or I may even say it's Exile. Make sense? Bob. Oh, we can do a lot with Bob. Because it's just B and B, and you make up the vowels. So Hebrew, you have to understand, you have to know Hebrew. In the Torah, it says Moses came down from Mount Sinai. When he came down from Mount Sinai, that there was a light that shone from his head. Okay? The word for shining out, or shining out, is karan. K-R-N is the root. But there's another word that also equates or has the same root. And this, by the way, is in Exodus 34:29. Okay? Karan or Kanab. But at the same time, in the 4th century, there's a guy named St. Jerome. St. Jerome writes what becomes known as the Vulgate. It's a translation of the Bible. Right? And he translates most other things he translates well, so we know he knows the words, but he consciously, remember there's a hatred against Jews, he consciously writes that instead of Karan, that the word is Karen, K-E-R-N, or K-R-N, which means horn. So he says, in the translation in the Vulgate, it says that Moses came down from Mount Sinai with horns. All right? Now this sounds, how many does this sound ludicrous to and ridiculous? Except, when do you think, without looking, when do you think that Bible stops being the official Bible of the Catholic Church? 1979. 1979. If you're a Catholic and you have a Bible that was printed before 1979, it says Moses has horns. So now, since we already killed God, we drink blood. We're like Satan, so what else do we have? Horns. That is then perpetuated by Michelangelo. If you turn the page, you're going to find an image of Michelangelo's sculpture of Moses. Who's ever seen it? Anyone ever seen the actual image? And so you've seen it. And he's got horns, doesn't he? They told you were horny?
When I was a child back in Iran, I went to my grandmother's house.
Wait, say that loudly so everyone can hear this, because I know what you're going to say. It's important.
When I was a child back in Iran, over 45 years ago, and went to my grandmother's house, she used to have the statue of Moses. And
Loudly.
She used to have this statue of Moses with 2 horns sticking out. Now it makes sense that what we're talking about, that was before 1979, that the statue of Moses had horns. And we had it in my grandmother's home.
Okay, I'm going to ask the question. How many of you have been asked by someone, can I see your horns?
Yes.
Or now, raise your hands. How many of you have been asked or know someone who was asked, have you seen, can I see your horns? Okay?
Oh,
And you know, by the way, you know what a circumcision is. That's when they remove our horns, right? Yeah, go ahead.
no.
Yeah, this is so. We're in the 21st century. This still goes on. This is what you need to understand. Yes, loudly.
My daughter went to the University of Oregon 10 years ago, and she was asked by one of her college roommates in the dorm in 2023 and 2013. Is it true you have?
Did you guys all hear that?
No.
2013, her daughter's in Oregon is asked by her roommate, is it true you have horns?
Oregon.
Don't laugh. This is in their Bible. So if they're studying a Bible that was printed pre-1979, it says Moses has horns. We killed God and we drink blood. Yes.
Can I make a distinction? That's a Catholic.
That's a Catholic. And to be very clear, this is, you guys all heard me say that, right? This is the Catholic Bible. This is the official Catholic Bible. This is not the Christian Bible. Okay?
This is why Jews wear hats. To cover their horns.
No, we wear it to cover our bald spot.
Okay.
That too.
So, all right, understand, but this is the Catholic Church. Bob, do you know how many Catholics are in the world?
Do I what?
No, how many Catholics there are in the world?
Oh, I think
2, 3 billion or something?
Yeah. 2 or 3 billion.
2 or 3 billion people, most of whom grew up. And remember, how many of you have a Bible in your house? How many of you have read it? As opposed to you give it to your kid and you say, this is what the story says. Right? Same thing in the Catholic household. Someone born in 1970, their father has a Catholic Bible. He tells them the story, and Moses comes down from Mount Sinai. He's got horns. And he gives that to his son. Do you think his son's going to actually read it? Do you think his son's going to get a new Bible and read it? Or is he going to trust what he heard? Okay? Very simply, number of you studied this with me. How many of you heard that Eve came from Adam's rib? I mean, honestly, how many of you grew up with that? Those of you who studied with me know that's a fallacy. That's not what the text says. Point blank simple. But that's the fallacy. And often we believe the fallacy more than we do what the text actually says. So now we kill God, we drink blood, and we have horns. So we're hated because we are obviously bad. Then you got another issue. Who's the father? Who's the father? Father. What some of the most important values to teach your children as a Jew? That you make sure we taught your children. Go back with the think. Educate, think. Mark. Thinking education up there? Okay. Who else is a parent? Thinking education up there? Okay. We have this whole concept of Talmud, which teaches you to think, to be educated, to think in a critical way, not to just accept information. And it usually backfires us, unless at least it has. My boys are 14 now.
Another 10 years, you'll be smart.
I'll be smart again in 10 years?
Maybe.
Since it all started when they got hair under their arms, if I shave the hair under their arms, will it be okay? Okay. All right, so we have all these things, but we teach our kids to be educated, to ask questions, to think, right? Talmud's all about examining, critical thinking. We learn mathematics through Talmud, through Hebrew letters, through Gematria. We learn multiple languages. Now we get to the Middle Ages, right? You've got peasants, you've got nobility or landowners, right? The landowner, who's the landowner? I'm looking for someone to be a good landowner. Roger's the landowner with his big stick. But Roger can't read or write, okay? Rita is the Jew, I'm sorry, Rita is the peasant who owes him taxes, all right? She owes him money. She doesn't know how much. He can't count. Alex is the Jew. He gets a great service business, doesn't he? He says, you know what? I'll collect for you. I'll collect from you. She hates him because he's collecting money. He hates him because he's convinced the Jew is stealing, because after all, the Jew killed God, drinks blood, and has horns. So everybody hates the Jew. This goes on throughout the Middle Ages and beyond. So one of the things to understand, Mark Twain said it beautifully 150 years ago in a book called Letters from the Earth. The white man hates the black man hates the yellow man hates the red man, but everybody hates the Jew. And it's true. It's extremely true. Because as you're seeing, this isn't a hate that's only 100 years old or even 1,000 years old. And it keeps mutating. Okay? When we get to World War I, you know why Germany lost the war, right? Because the Jewish traitor. You know that, right? That's why we have World War II. That justifies the Nazis coming after the Jews. So we have a 2,000-year history, theologically and on a practical level, of anti-Semitism. We're hated by everybody, which I guess is a good thing or a bad thing saying. Look at it, at least it's unanimous, right? So we kill God, we drink blood, we're greedy, we worship money. Okay? We basically are everything that's bad. Now let's go to another thing. How do we live? We live kosher. We can't eat with them. Right? We eat different. We dress differently. We wear yarmulke, or head covering. We wear talis. By the way, this is just, how many of you have heard the myth that observant Jewish couples make love through the sheets? Okay. It's not true. The Talmud, and we'll do this class in a few months, the Talmud has very specific marital relations advice. What probably happened, and Rabbi Chaim Ovadia actually was the first person who I'd heard this from, is you dry out your clothes on the clothesline, right? And so you had the non-Jewish neighbor over here, and he saw the Jewish neighbor, and we have a talis katan, which is a big blanket with a hole in the middle for a head that we wear under the shirt, right? So they saw this thing being hung, looks kind of like a sheet, big hole in the middle. And so Rabbi Ovadia believes that the history of that is that the non-Jewish neighbor said, "Oh, look, they go through that they make love through a sheet," which then always confuses me because I'm thinking the hole's this big. Okay, so
we know it's not true.
they forgot what we're talking about. So we are the outsider. We eat differently. We dress differently, and we celebrate the Sabbath on a different day. Right? We are totally the outsider. We're the outsider. We worship, the devil. We drink. Do you guys see how this is now 2,000 years? Through the Inquisition, through all the pogroms, it's the same attitude. It's all based on one of these basic concepts. We steal from both sides. These are all the myths that are created and become anti-Semitism. But all these things continue to make Jews hated. And it's all capitalized on 85 years ago tomorrow. The Jews are blamed for the loss of World War I, and Hitler rises to power. And I don't know how many of you know this, but there were a fair number of Jews who were supportive of him. Hitler actually was very good at a number of things. And it wasn't just Hitler. So I want to talk a couple minutes about costs. Is that okay? We'll probably talk about it tomorrow night. I'm sorry. Oh, that's a dog? Okay. It's a raccoon. He's going to poop on you. Okay, so Goebbels and Hitler are brilliant. And you got to give credit where credit is due. They are brilliant. You see their brilliance with the death of Horst Wessel. For those, how many of you have never heard of Horst Wessel before? Horst Wessel is a nasty thug, pimp, probably drug dealer, criminal, but he's a low-level guy in the Nazi Party. Doesn't pay his rent. His widow or his landlord goes to her dead husband's friends who are communists, say, go collect the rent. They beat him. He ends up dying. Goebbels and Hitler are ecstatic, and they end up making him a martyr, which prompts riots in the street that are actually called peaceful demonstrations, allowing the Nazi Party to establish power as basically domestic terrorists, to the point that the tricolored German flag, that it is replaced, or not, that's not true. Before Hitler's even in charge, the tricolored German flag, they decide we're going to fly the the Nazi flag next to it. Oops. How many of you see a parallel to something in the last few years? The George Floyd incident was direct carbon copy. Melina Abdullah, the head of BLM Los Angeles, when she was asked, why are the riots in Los Angeles not at a federal building? They're not at a city hall. Why are you rioting in the Jewish neighborhood? This is a direct quote I have here. Her says we want the people to feel pain. Directly copied Goebbels and Hitler. Don't be surprised that they were happy at stuff. As an organization, individuals in any organization may be different, but as an organization. One of the things that Hitler and Goebbels also did very successfully is they blamed the loss of your property, to all of you nice Germans, the loss of your property, of everything. It's because we lost the war. You know why we lost the war? It's because those Jews who speak Yiddish, they were traitors. They are Jews before they are Germans. And so, and by the way, the entire Reform movement is based on guys in Germany who said we're more German than Jewish. That's the history of the Reform movement, people. So, and they call everyone else Orthodox, and then a century later you have the conservative who say we're not as observant as the Orthodox, nor conservative than Reform. But so you have Hitler and Goebbels blaming the Jew, and they set it up for a couple of years. They've already had the Horst Wessel riots, and they're waiting. It is a tinderbox waiting to have some event to blame the Jew, because it's easy to blame the Jew, because after all, we all know the Jew killed God's blood, right? Has horns. And they keep pushing and pushing the Jews, making it more and more difficult, and many of them acquiesce, but they're starting to get a little upset. But as is easily found, many of the Jews of the time say, no, it's going to get better. It can never happen here. We've been in Germany 500 years. There won't be any pogroms like there are in Russia here in Germany. And one Jew gets pushed too far because he's being deported again, and so he goes into an embassy office and he kills a low-level ambassador. And his name's, I believe, Von Roth. And that is announced while Goebbels and Hitler are in a meeting, staff meeting, and Hitler gets up and makes a big announcement that as of tomorrow, you can do whatever you want to the Jew, not to interfere. The authorities are not to interfere. And 85 years ago tomorrow, on November 9th, 1938, is the night of broken glass, the night of Kristallnacht. In Kristallnacht, almost 300 synagogues in Germany and Austria were destroyed. Over 7,000 Jewish businesses were burned and destroyed. It's called Night of Broken Glass because the glass exploded out. Somewhere between 91 and 600 Jews were murdered, depending on which source you look at. And over 30,000 Jews were imprisoned and sent to camps. Kristallnacht is considered the first night of the Holocaust, and tomorrow is the 85th anniversary. And I hope you will all be there along with every one of your friends and everybody you know. Because if we don't remember the past, you can be damn well sure, God forbid, it's going to be repeated. And we need to pray and we need to act. Loudly, so that everyone's here.
I'd also Reichstag fire at a
Or Wessel.
And they blamed the Reichstag fire on the communists, and a lot of Jews were that. Remember, they had a lot of artifacts. They blamed fires on the Jews and the communists. That was early 30.
That's after Wessel. So,
which to me is a draw parallel to Scott fires and other people for something that the Brown Church did. I compare that to our January 6th.
Now, let's think something. Yes, raise the hand, Rabbi, from someone. Loudly.
What's the theory or thought process behind why so many or whatever
Repeat the question.
I was asked that question today in an interview with Sebastian Gorka.
What question? Can you repeat it out loud?
The question, I was asked a different version of it. The question is, why did so many Jews become communists? Why do so many Jews become socialists? Why do so many Jews become secular? And their religion becomes their politics. Let me explain. So this is not a pejorative. This is not meant to be pejorative. Please do not take it as such. Okay? I want to preface that because everyone needs to hear that. Okay? This is not a pro side or anything else. This is an understanding of the situation. Leftist/socialist values are very, very much on the surface Jewish values. On the surface, you want to make the world a better place, that's our value. On the surface, you want the best for everyone, that's our value. Okay? Whether it's secular socialism, communism in that time, whatever it may be. That's why Jews have always been at the forefront of the NAACP. We've always been at the forefront of civil rights because we believe so strongly that it's important to do the right thing and make the world a better place. At our heart, every Jew at his heart is a 60s liberal. I am. Okay? Who else is? Come on, I am the only 60s liberal in this room? Where's Jack? I thought I saw Jack walk in. Jack, where are you? You're not listening? You're not going to raise your hand when I said, am I the... Oh, okay, thank you. I'm going to say, you and I are the only guys? Mark, you are right? Okay. It sings to our values. It's what our values are. It's how you get to that result that is different. Judaism gets to the result through the mitzvot, through work. And work this way, a theological work, as opposed to the socialist, utopian values which get there differently. So it automatically sings to us. The concept works. But the question is still the question, why do so many Jews reject Judaism? Judaism is difficult, people. Forgetting about the hate. Forgetting about the fact about your diet. Forgetting about the fact that you don't get to go to get a, ribs at Chicago Ribs or whatever the place ribs are in. There were places in Memphis. A professor at Hebrew Union College once said, Judaism is not designed to make you feel good. It's supposed to make you be better. We're not interested in feeling good. We're interested in making the world a better place. I'm not interested in it's all nice and cushy. I like nice and cushy. I like sweets. But I'm not interested. I'm interested in making the world a more honest, truthful, better place for everyone. Stopping injustice. One of our prime commandments, tzedek tirdof, justice shall you pursue. Judaism is very much about making you be better. And it's hard. If you really take the process of high holidays and tshuva, you got to get really honest. Who wants to get really honest? Who wants to be really self-reflective? That takes a certain level of maturity. Some of you heard this. I remember I was in my late 20s, and mid-20s, late 20s, and I'd gone out with a woman like in the fall and winter, and broken up with her in only the way that a 25-year-old jerk can do.
Texting? You texted her?
This was pre-texted. Nick, this was before indoor plumbing, okay? So now it's Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And I know I got an obligation. I got to make tshuva with this woman who I haven't talked to in 9 months. And I did. It was extremely hard, and she thought I was Meshuggah, so it was okay. But to get reflective and honest about what mistakes we've made, that's hard. That's hard work. It's easier to not be Jewish. Plus the world hates you. So if you're not going to be Jewish, and you don't want to convert to Christianity, of whatever form, Catholicism, well, if you convert to a political party, and your political party becomes your religion, to a political cause, a political way, and that becomes your religion, makes sense now, doesn't it? So the Holocaust happens with Hitler. So I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to chug, move forward. So I'm going to pull the way through pages. So the Holocaust happens. It is extremely difficult for Hitler and for the Germans. It costs more money. It is a losing proposition, and yet they continue to do it because of the hate, because of this anti-Semitism. Now you get to where the world changes. Everyone says during the war, oh, we don't believe it. Even when people show hidden photographs, we don't believe those photographs. They've been doctored. And the camps are released. And Eisenhower says, film it, because the world will never believe this. Film as we liberate the camps. Hitler had done filming in the concentration camps because he thought the world would celebrate him purging all Jews from the earth. And in the early 50s, mid-50s, a film is made called Night and Fog. How many of you have seen it? It is beyond disturbing. It is a combination of footage that was done by the Allied camps during liberation and by Hitler's footage. So as an example, you see a little pair of glasses and it backs up and it's a mound of tens of thousands of glasses. It shows how Jewish human skin was used to make lampshades. Hair from Jews to be used to make pillows. You can find it on YouTube. It's, I think, in 8 parts. And the world sees all this, and now the world feels guilty. Because it's hard to say you hate a Jew right? When they've just gone through this. And with me so far? Okay, we've moved through all the way to the 20th century. In 1948, we have the State of Israel, recognized by the United Nations. And immediately Israel is attacked by 5 countries. Let me back up a little bit, because this will tell us where we are today. In 1922, the Brits, who have now controlled that Middle Eastern region, as a result of their, they've negotiated with different Arab families, specifically one that has like 5 cousins, and they end up creating these kingdoms and having people in charge of these traditional kingdoms of Saudi Arabia and Jordan and Egypt, etc. They're all like one family. They're all second cousins of each other. And in 1948, they declare Israel. There is no Palestine. Palestine is a mandate of the nation of Jordan. It's like saying Puerto Rico is a mandate of the United States. Everyone understand the relationship. And they attack. And Israel wins, thank God. And throughout the 50s, this keeps going on, the Suez conflict, all different wars. And what ends up happening? The Arabs keep getting their butts kicked, and they're getting kicked in the World Court of World Opinion, public opinion. My letter doesn't want to thank you. And so they hire a public relations company, of whom one of the partners is a man named George Anderson. It was founded in 1909 in New York City. They went out of business in the 80s. And they come to him in the early 60s, and they say to this firm, and they say, we need to get better in the world's eyes. And so they say, what should we do? And Anderson says, you need to create a victim. And that is when Palestine is born. The state of Palestine is not a state, it's a mandate of Jordan. They're Jordanians. In 1967, so I want to bring this into modern anti-Semitism as well. Okay, and there's lots of incidents I know about that are in this. I want to be conscious of time because I like to do it. I know there's going to be discussion. There is, in 1967, we're still heroes in the world, right? People love Israel. It's the David to the world's Goliath. PLO has only been started 3 years earlier, and they're very excited. Everyone loves Israel. And then Israel is attacked by Jordan, Syria, Egypt, and then they're joined by other countries. And in 6 days in June, they win the war. It's called the 6-Day War because we're very creative with names. And so they go and they take the 6-Day War and they win. Up until that time, Moshe Dayan had a statement that was true. You could light a cigarette on one border of Israel, get to the opposite side of the country, the other border, the cigarette would still be lit. That's how thin it was in the middle with wax. In that war, they end up, and this has been international law for always, if it's a defensive war and you end up taking territory, it's yours. They end up being in the Golan Heights, where we lost a lot of people to get. They get the West Bank and Jerusalem. They get Gaza and Egypt. Sinai, excuse me, from Egypt. And they have another war, and then they have the Yom Kippur War. How many of you remember the Yom Kippur War? Lasted 18 days, just to put it in perspective where we are today. But now, by the 80s, Israel keeps winning, especially after the Yom Kippur War. So now those people who have had anti-Semitism inbred into them for 2,000 years, but they couldn't talk about it because Israel's under us, now they can start talking about it as, Israel, they're bullies. Those Israelis, they're horrible. And in 1967, the Arab nations do one of the most brilliant marketing scams in the history of public relations. They say that the Jordanians who are living in living in the West Bank, and the Egyptians who are living in Gaza, they say they're one nation called Palestine. Now, just to put this in perspective, this is as if the states of New York and the states of California, seceded from the Union, said, we are the states of New California, and everything in between is our territory that's being occupied by the United States. That is what they did. The great-grandfathers of the people in the West Bank called themselves Jordanians. The great-grandfathers of the people in Gaza called themselves Egyptians. There was no Palestine. Palestine has only been used a couple of times throughout history. It was used in the late Ottoman Empire, the late 19th century through 22, as a term that was a term of a slang term of degradation. So instead of saying, I'm going to call your neighborhood Shantytown or the barrio, which is going to be very insulting, same type of thing. We're going to call your neighborhood Palestine. Okay? Starts getting used as a derogatory term in the late 19th century, and doesn't put it on some passports, the Ottoman Empire and the British passports. It's a mandate. How many of you were born in Russia? What did your passport say on it for nationality? Tell them. Jew. It said Jew. Derogatory way of identifying you in the Soviet Union.
That's what it says on my ID card from Iran.
Your card says
Sohail Rabbani, son of Amir the Jew.
Amir the Jew. Okay? So, in 1967, they create this state of Palestine. And what ends up happening at that point is they say everything in between is occupied territory, because Palestine is really from the river, Jordan River, where the West Bank is, to the sea, where Gaza is. In the 80s, we make the land for peace deal with Egypt, give them back half the Sinai. Thank God we've kept that peace. They've kept that peace. But throughout this whole problem, from the time the public relations becomes more and more, right? And people want to believe it because we've already established for 2,000 years they hate the Jew. You guys following all this? Any excuse to hate the Jew is a good excuse to hate the Jew. They got 2,000 years of us killing God, drinking blood, having horns, stealing in money. You guys see how deep this is? Being traitors. You guys all seeing how deeply ingrained this is. This wasn't going to get healed in the 30 years between the end of World War II and the Yom Kippur War. It just was hidden underground because it was unpopular to say. So people embrace that concept because they want to hate the Jew. They've been raised on that. As one person said, it's their mother's milk. It's in their DNA. They've been hated for so many generations, so many hundreds, even thousands of years. Now we get to the 80s, and because Israel is successful in Yom Kippur, but the publicity campaign is really appealing to people because people want to hate the Jew because of this 2,000 years. You don't say you hate the Jews, but you know what? Israel. And they're occupiers. Now, I want to just back up a bit. So I'm going to go back in history. 3,700 years ago, God promises the land to us through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Roughly 3,500 years ago, give or take, 3,300 years ago, we're in Israel. We have different tribes, and about 3,100 years ago, these nomadic tribes, which that's all there was in the region, but 12 of the clans of the tribe of the Hebrews are unified under a king named Saul. It is the first kingdom in the region. You guys all got that? The oldest cemetery in Israel is Mount of Olives. How many of you have been there? 3,000 years old. You know when the oldest Muslim cemetery, Islamic cemetery was built? 11th century. We're a little older. 3,000 years ago. We have Saul, David, Solomon, the kingdom split. North kingdom is defeated in 722 before the Common Era. The southern kingdom is defeated, but then they come back. The temple's rebuilt. We go through the Assyrians. We go through the Greeks. Yay, Hanukkah, Hanukkah, Hanukkah. We end up getting the Romans taking over. I'm going through history very quickly. In 70 of the Common Era, the second temple is destroyed. Jews still live there. We are dispersed, but there's still Jewish presence there. That goes on through the entire Roman Empire. Even when you have the Mamluks in the 13th century who are an Ottoman tribe, and they're composed of Muslims and Gypsies and all sorts of people who control Israel. It's the first time Muslims control it. And they are there, and that goes to the Ottoman Empire and ultimately to the British, ultimately to Israel. Does everyone follow that? Nowhere in there is Palestine. It's a made-up story. There are certain texts that suggest that the Romans, when they destroyed the Second Temple, called parts of Judea Philistinia in order to insult the Jews as opposed to calling it Judea. All right? But again, it's like saying, hey, you live in the barrio. You live in shantytown. Okay? There is no state of Palestine, and there's no relationship, by the way, between the Philistines and modern Palestine. Moreover, there aren't even Philistines at that time. That's why it's a term of degradation. Okay, Philistines, yes.
When was the Dome of the Rock built?
I don't actually know. I think 9th or 10th. I don't know. He asked when the Dome of the Rock was built. I actually don't know the date. If anyone knows, please feel free. So now you have none of this. But in the 1980s, well, you know, the poor Palestinians, their country has been split. Some of them are in the West Bank, some are in Gaza. Oh my! And they're one country. Is that true, or is that a bunch of? What's the rat dropping on me? Which is it? Is it true, or is it rat droppings? Okay. And it becomes okay to say you're anti-Israel. Because the world wants to embrace that, because remember the history we have. Now let me add another piece in there, because it's an important concept. In Islam, in the Quran, there is this concept of waqf. W-A-Q-F. It means holy possession. The idea is that if I possess something and it's dedicated to Allah, it is always Allah's. And one of the three qualities that allow me in Islam to have my heavenly benefits is alms, charity that goes on past the extent of my life. So waqf is if this piece of if this plastic plate has been dedicated to Allah by me, it is always for Allah. And if you try to take it away from Allah, you are taking me out of heaven. This is the concept of waqf. Does everyone understand it? Literally, their place in heaven depends upon what is dedicated to Allah stays dedicated to Allah. This becomes misconstrued because it's supposed to be just charity, right? I build a building, it's dedicated to Allah. But it becomes misconstrued by a number of different prophets who I refer to in the later pages of this handout of different Islamic leaders, that any land that is dedicated or fought for Allah is always Allah's. Waqf. If you, in 1988, Hamas is created. They say in their preface, they are part of the Muslim Brotherhood. They say it in their preface. You can Google and see the whole thing. I have excerpts in the handout. Where it is, it's called the Covenant of 1988. It is the Charter of Hamas. And they say that it is, they do not claim a historical tie to the land. They do not in their charter, because they wouldn't even try to go that far in 88. They don't try to say this has always been Palestinian land. They say they are entitled to the land by right of waqf. Okay? They're entitled to it because of right of waqf. So I want to go forward a little bit and look at some of these excerpts. Oh no, they don't want to speak cigar. Because I think it's important. Well, you guys are fluent on cigar, but not everyone is. So first, does everyone understand where we are with anti-Semitism in general, not involving the conflict of today? Yes, no, or yes? You got to talk to me because I can't see you all. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to have you responsible. Mark, you're responsible for that table. Do they all say yes? Yes. Peter, do they all say yes? Yes. Okay. Rick, they all said yes? Close enough. Okay.
Yes,
all right. Before we get into a little bit more, I want to point out something. 4 years ago, I wrote a bunch of articles saying no Jew should have anything to do with BLM. Because in their charter, in their manifesto, they call for the destruction of Israel. And I was castigated for it by rabbis and Jewish organizations who said, oh no, they don't really mean it. Now I gotta believe. If someone says they want to kill me, I believe they do. If someone writes they want to kill me, I really believe they do. Because that's not written. How many of you saw that horrible meme a couple of weeks ago from BLM? How many of you did not?
Chicago one?
The Chicago and LA, yes.
LA?
They published the Chicago one. It says Chicago, but LA also published it. They also tweeted it.
That came out a couple days out.
Came right out. And for those of you who do not know, it was BLM supporting, we support Palestine, and it was an image of a paraglider coming in onto the kids.
Oh, yes.
And they made a written statement that they support the Palestinians. If someone writes down that they want to kill somebody, and it's done by committee, which all these things are, I think it's a good idea to maybe consider they might mean what they say. Do you know how many hundreds of millions of dollars Jews gave to BLM in the last few years? Including through synagogues. We have to be more aware, always. So in 1988, we have this Hamas. And if you turn, and by the way, if you look at pages 12 and 13, you'll see things from BLM, images they did. Okay, lots of documentation for it. 14. If you turn to page 15 on the bottom, that was the image that they published. I stand with Palestine. Which is no surprise. In their charter, they want Israel destroyed. So let's turn to page 16. We talk about the Swaf and the Holy, what they say. Could someone please turn to actually the top of page 17. These are all direct quotes from Hamas. Now let's be clear. Hamas is accepted as the leaders of Palestine. And let's remember that in their first elections, they won by 90%. Also understand something. Reports have come in, this is not questionable.
I thought it was just Gaza.
The people, the Hamas, I want to call them people. The terrorists who went in and killed families. The terrorists who went in and raped women. Who cut off breasts of mothers in front of their children. These terrorists who went in and shot children in front of their parents, or who killed a boyfriend, raped his girlfriend on top of his corpse and filmed it, and then sent the film because it was on the woman's phone and sent it to her parents. The ones who put babies in an oven to bake and who beheaded them. It has been released and it is known. There's just no reason to write this, but I don't mind teaching it, showing it. That the vast majority of these terrorists who had a very clear plan knew the patterns of each of these family members and which doors they use. You know how they knew?
Yes.
They had been told by workers who lived in Gaza. Okay? So please don't tell me that Palestine and Hamas are totally separate. Although they're obviously innocent Palestinians, I don't even call them that. They're innocent Gazans. I think that's one of the things we need to do. We take Palestine out of our language and call it Gaza. Yeah, I'm sorry. Lovely. I'm sorry, yes. They're in Gaza, yes. And These were people from Gaza that were workers. So let's read what Hamas really is. Because again, you don't put things in writing unless you mean them. They've gone over through a few people, right? Right? So someone please turn to this page. I believe it's 17. And start reading at the top. These are direct quotes from the Covenant of 1988 with Hamas. Loudly, who wants to read? Someone in the center area with a loud voice. Come ready, come on.
This is the law governing the
Wait, can you guys hear?
This is
No,
the,
go over there so they can hear you.
This is the law governing the land of Palestine in the Islamic Sharia law, and the same goes for any land the Muslims have conquered by force, because during the times of Islamic conquest, the Muslims consecrated these lands to Muslim generations till the day of judgment. Article 11.
Sharia law. Tell me some things about Sharia law that you know. Can women travel without man's permission?
No.
Can a woman be dressed to show her hair?
No.
Her legs?
No.
Her arms?
No.
Can homosexuals, are they okay?
No.
You know, I think that the most ironic posters I have seen that don't make any sense at all, and they're ironic because these people are so idiot, is when it says Jewish lesbians for Palestine.
Yeah.
They'll have a bidding war. It'll be a fundraiser to see who can kill you first. Okay, go on. Go on, Rick, loudly.
Israel.
Sharia law says that Allah has not given enough resources for the unbeliever. And therefore, if a Muslim steals from a non-Muslim, it wasn't theirs to begin with, therefore it's not theft. That's Sharia law.
There you go. Go on, please continue. Loudly.
Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before it. The martyr Imam Hassan al-Banna of
Does this sound like people who want peace? Does this sound like people who are in any way, shape, or form interested in a two-state solution, a one-state solution? Anything? They're not even interested in the state of Palestine, are they? They're just interested in the destruction of Israel. Please go on.
The Islamic resistance movement is one of the wings of Muslim Brotherhood in Palestine.
Hamas is an acronym for Islamic resistance movement. They are already claiming the Muslim Brotherhood. They are wings of it. If you don't know more about it, you can do some research, but it's as far dangerous for the last 80 years as anything. Go on.
Islamic resistance movement believes that the land of Palestine is an Islamic waqf, consecrated for future Muslim generations until Judgment Day. It or any part of it should not be squandered. It or any part of it should not be given up. Neither a single Arab country nor all Arab countries, neither any king or president nor all the kings and presidents, neither any organization nor all of them, be they Palestinian or Arab, possess the right to do that. Palestine is an Islamic waqf land consecrated for Muslim generations until judgment.
Do these people want anything other than death? Do you guys see this? No, not yet, but I'd like to give it to them. Go ahead, keep going. So please continue, because the next one's a big one.
The day of judgment will not come until...
Wait, yes. What? You got to speak up in this crowd. What?
I said something is supposed to help them to go.
I have a friend who's a rabbi who will remain nameless, who said, no, what we really need to do is tell them that we're going to bury all their mothers and bury them with desecrated pigs. Okay, please, but this isn't helping. Let's be serious. Please continue.
The day of judgment.
This is a really big one. If you can read it in your paper, read it while he's reading it yourself. Page 17. Please read what they say.
Page 17, middle of the page. The day of judgment will not come about until Muslims fight the Jews, killing the Jews, when the Jew will hide behind stones and trees. The stones and trees will say, O Muslims, O Abdullah, There's a Jew behind me. Come and kill him. Only the harkad tree, evidently a certain kind of tree, would not do that because it is one of the trees of the Jews.
Is that clear enough?
Article 7.
Say it out loudly. She just got it. Say it loudly because you just got it. I wondered who's going to get it. Say it loudly, Ab.
That's them hiding behind human shields.
Because in other parts of the Hamas covenant, it's very clear that if you are not part of their covenant, part of their Islamic resistance movement, you don't count. Because you're really an infidel at heart, which means, can I bomb you? Can I use you as a human shield?
Yes.
Now do you understand? Hamas is very clear who they are.
And that's why they're hiding underneath.
Go on. Go on.
Peace initiatives and so-called peace solutions and international conferences are in contradiction to the principles of the Islamic resistance movement. Those conferences are no more than a means to appoint the infidels as arbitrators in the land of Islam. There is no solution for the Palestinian problem except by jihad. Initiatives, proposals in international conferences are but a waste of time, an exercise in futility. Article 13.
Sorry, I was being pooped on. Or peed on or something. So, do they want peace?
No.
What is the purpose of peace? It was pee, wasn't it?
Yes.
I've been peed on by a rat. Raccoon.
Your hair too.
I wear this Islamic background.
Give me that. Give me that.
Oh my God.
Take it off.
Can you give me that one too, please? No, there it is. There it is.
Hey, Rabbi, you have it on your head too.
Want some water?
It's a Hamas raccoon.
Some water.
Yeah, well, someone. How bad is? I don't want to know. All right, so let's continue on. It's just raccoon pee.
It's good luck.
I'm sure it is. Even the raccoons pee on me.
No, don't touch it.
Don't touch me. Here, just pour some of this on my back. Okay, so.
He was putting out the fire.
Yeah, well, I'm going to smoke his. All right, so. Oh, we got film. The rabbi got peed on by the raccoon. Okay. Had I known, we could have done it as a fundraiser. I'm sure plenty of you would have donated. So, could have been a whole other kind of fundraiser. Yeah. May God bless and keep the raccoons pee far away from me. Okay. All right, so let's be clear. He follows me. I'm going to hide behind some help.
Just stay here. Just don't move. Come here. Come here. Stay with me.
Okay. Thank God I wear hats. All right, so what does it say? Movements for peace. Are they actual attempts for peace?
No.
They have one purpose. They're subterfuge, aren't they?
Yeah, it's right here. It's a waste of time, an exercise in futility. They say it flat out. I mean,
Should we have a ceasefire?
no.
Why?
Because
Do
they,
they want-
don't want
Do they?
ceasefire.
Should we make a truce?
No. No.
Do they want a truce?
No.
Well, they do.
Okay. All right.
It's only a strategic move on
I
their
want
part.
him to stop Bell. Okay,
Can I
so
go to the next one?
please.
All right.
Sounds like the raccoon moved.
Hey, behave up there, okay?
Man.
All right. Initiatives and so-called peaceful solutions and international conferences are in contradiction to the principles of the Islamic resistance movement. Abusing any part of Palestine is abuse directed against part of religion. Nationalism of the Islamic resistance movement is part of its religion. Its members have been fed on that. For the sake of hoisting the banner of Allah over their homeland, they fight. Article 13.
Please continue the next one, and then I'll also make a comment on it.
Under the wing of Islam, it is possible for the followers of the three religions, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, to coexist in peace and quiet with each other. Peace and quiet would not be possible except under the wing of Islam. Past and present history are the best witnesses to that.
So what is it saying? Thank you, so. So what is it saying?
They have
Anytime-
to be in control.
It's got to be an Islamic world, number one, and number two. Number two, I said be situational. Yeah, just number one. Thank you, Bob. It's just a number one. You hear I said the Shachyanis. It's the first time I've been beat on my record. So they're just lightening the mood. So first of all, they're not interested in peace, and anything that says they are is only with the ultimate goal of doing what? Killing us.
Subjugating us.
Subjugating, if we want to be subjugated, but killing anything in Israel.
2 words. Never again.
Never again is now.
I have a question.
Yes, loudly.
So there's the Shia, and what's the other?
Okay, we're not going to get into Islamic theology of Sunni, Shiite, Sufi.
But
all
I
that.
was just wondering whether there was a difference in terms of.
Sure, there's a lot of differences.
wanting to kill Jews.
There's a lot of differences. I have a friend who I may bring when things are a little bit calmer to the temple, a man named Amir Hussein, who's an Islamic scholar and a friend, and a wonderful book called Oil and Water about Christian-Islamic relationships. And the Sufis are one of the most beautiful, it's a sect of Islam, it's one of the most beautiful theological paths on the planet. It's a healing, mystical, poetic, and music path. As opposed to...
I have a question.
They are
Just look at this.
Islamic, however, they don't want to kill them.
Apparently not. This is what this part is. So let's be clear. Do the people in Gaza want peace?
No.
And is it easy now to...
Hamas doesn't want
Well, okay. You know what? There is no distinction at this point. There are innocents who, whether it's 1 or 1 million, there are people in Palestine who do not want to be around Hamas. And Israel is the only country in the history of the universe, as far as I know, who sends tanks to protect the civilians of their enemy. Why? Because the civilians, if they're not attached to Hamas, what does this charter say? Here's what.
Yeah, I put water on it.
Oh, you put water on it? Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought I got
I
something else.
cleaned it for you.
Thank you. So, that all being said, because Hamas, they're not pro-Hamas, therefore, they're not that different than us.
They're also murdered by Hamas.
That's the point. Yes,
Let's not
loudly.
forget, if you watch any television or saw anything on social media, during and after and to this day, that attack was celebrated in the streets.
That's right.
And it's on any anniversary of 9/11, these innocent civilians have made this a national holiday where they celebrate our 9/11. And if you remember, October 7th, 8th, and 9th, they were having parades.
All over the world. So, let's take a look at this. Why were they having parades? Not just there. Why were they having parades in London, in France? Why? Because there's 2,000 years of anti-Semitism. So it's easy. Look, Israel, the Jews are getting what they deserve. These useful idiots in these demonstrations all around the country,
Some Jewish.
they're all sitting there because they bought into this PR scam of 65 years. And as a result of it, they are willing, it's easy. They've been raised consciously, unconsciously about the Jew being different. So now the Jew is the persecutor. Do you guys see how this works? Is this going to get cured in a week, a month, a year? So how do we cure it? What do? We got 2,000 years of history and a great PR campaign against us, but it's lies. So what do? Let's avoid we're going to avoid the war on Hamas, right? We're going to talk about avoid the war. That's a different discussion. We talked about Hamas and Amalek and all that stuff. What are we going to do about the anti-Semitism going on Westlake Boulevard and Thousand Oaks Boulevard? Who said that? Stan, fabulous. Read page 19 loudly. Okay, never mind. Stan's got to find it.
There's no page 19.
Who wants to read page 18? Someone back here loudly. Go, Mike, loudly.
regard to the current.
With regard to the current war and demonstrations, stay away from these demonstrations. There is nothing to be gained by showing up and counter-protesting.
Do you guys get that?
Yes.
Stay the hell away.
They're looking for
Wait a
violence.
second. You all, if you read it, everyone got an email on Saturday night. Don't go to Westlake and Thousand Oaks Boulevard. Because the 2 weeks beforehand, they were doing this as well. And what are you going to gain by going up and arguing with someone who is looking to get violent or have a fight? You're not going to gain anything. You're not going to change their mind. And you sure as heck aren't going to be able to get them to stop being unconscious anti-Semites. How do I know every one of them is an anti-Semite? Because they call Palestine from the river to the sea. Right? If they said, Palestine, we want you to have your own statehood. Palestine, two-state solution. Different statement. But when they call it river to the sea, that means that
Amazon selling shirts that say that.
yes, they are.
Actually, get rid of the Jews and Christians.
Yep. Yes, they are. Please continue, Mike.
They're looking for violence, and that is all that can happen in counter-protesting. If you desire to have a rally, do it not in reaction and have an armed security there.
Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, Mormon Church in Westlake. We're going to remember Kristallnacht. There will be prayers from different clergy, different faith traditions. There will be music. There will also be armed security and a police presence. Why are we doing the Mormon Church? Because they're very nice neighbors. They're bigger than our synagogue, and it's an incredibly safe, easily protected building. Mike, you've been to that building, right? And Mike knows about security. Much safer than our synagogue. Much safer than most buildings in the city. Okay? 7 p.m. That's how. What you want to demonstrate? Demonstrate by praying, by showing up and letting them know that we don't just cower. We'll gather together, and we'll have it with security. By the way, for those of you who are unaware, there's security here right now because there are at least 4 people I know who've concealed carries and are carrying right now. Okay? I got a flashlight. Okay? And she's got crutches. And I got a cigar and I know how to throw it. Okay? All right. But my point is there will be security to safe. I want to invite everyone to please come and bring as many people as you can from any faith tradition. That Kristallnacht is not repeated. Please continue.
Educate everyone you know about the real history of Palestine, Gaza, West Bank, and use the quotes above to demonstrate what Hamas really is.
Take the handouts with you. Use them. Memorize them. Have them in your pocket. So when someone makes a stupid comment, you can say, wait a minute, are you aware? I haven't even seen this video. There's a great video from some guy in New York where he says, I haven't even seen the petition video. It's great. He goes up to different people and he says, excuse me, will you sign a petition that you support Hamas? And they say, absolutely. He goes, well, before I have to read you the rules and conditions, do you agree that every homosexual should be imprisoned or beheaded? Do you think that women should? And it goes on through all of it. They go, no, I can't agree with that. He goes, well, I'm glad I showed you the rules. That's in their charter. It's a brilliant piece. Educate people, because you know what? Those useful idiots on Thousand Oaks Boulevard, they don't know. Or on
Berkeley or Stanford. Come on. Yeah.
They don't know. They don't know. When they're shouting about genocide, they don't know. Okay? They've just been useful idiots. Please continue, Mike.
Change the narrative through media, conversations, and education. If most people actually saw the Hamas charter and what they are dedicated to, they would not be so supportive. Ask people if they want Israel totally destroyed. God forbid. Point out that Palestine has repeatedly rejected two-state solution proposals 5 times in the last 18 years.
How many of you realize that? 5 times! Since Hamas has been there, they have proposed a two-state solution, and those SOBs are not interested. Instead, they do what they did October 7th. Don't tell me they're looking for peace. Please continue.
And point out that the genocidal intention of from the river to the sea, if the West Bank and Gaza are considered one country, then the definition is that Israel is occupied territory that must be eliminated. The very statement of river to the sea is a conscious attempt to invalidate Israel's very right to exist.
We must be clear, pointing this out to people. Because most people, at least I believe, are good. I believe most people have good intentions, and when they really understand the choice between good and evil, they will choose good. When they understand the choice between hope and death, they will choose hope. I believe that. And I hope you do too. We believe in the innate goodness of human beings, but they need to be reminded, they need to be awakened, they need to be shown, because they just don't believe it. Please continue. Just finish it off.
All right. Fighting anti-Semitism constantly and not just regarding Hamas at all. Education. I think everybody mentioned that tonight. Invite non-Jews to Jewish events. Educate our children so that they can spot anti-Semitism.
Okay, so let's address each of these. Why do an interfaith service at a Mormon temple for Kristallnacht? Right, because I guarantee you most Christians, most Jews at this point, do not know the history of Kristallnacht. And if they do, if they learned it, then they will suddenly have a different attitude, won't they? So I invite all of you not only to come, bring 2 or 3 friends who are not Jewish. Let them learn. Let them see, let them understand, and see, sadly, some of the parallels. That's what's important about tomorrow night.
The capacity there.
If we hit the capacity, great. So the capacity, there are already seats set up for 275 in pews. We can open it up to another 400 by opening up the room behind it. We should have such a problem, God willing, that we have people overflowing and standing. This should be the champagne problem we have. Okay? But to bring the non-Jews, have them come, have them learn about it and see that, you know what? We pray together. We act together. We live together. The other piece is educate your children. Send them on birthright when it comes around again. I will tell you a sad story. My children went to Lawn Ramon Day School, and we transferred in first grade. We transferred them to Westlake Elementary School. And I went up to the principal, probably 28, 30 years old, and I said to her, I just want you to know I'm the local rabbi, and my children will be wearing ball caps in school. It is not a gang thing, because I know hats aren't allowed. It's a religious thing. If it's not in my school, they won't. I said, absolutely, they will. They don't wear yarmulkes, they wear ball caps. They don't want to be targets of anti-Semitism. And she says to me, and this is a quote, I have lived in the Conejo Valley my entire life, and there is no anti-Semitism. Yes.
Did you call her this week?
No, I didn't. I don't need to do that. And I said to her, I don't get to tell you if there's misogyny. Neither of us get to tell a black man if there's racism. And you sure as hell don't get to tell me about anti-Semitism. Went home, called the superintendent of schools, who walked my kids in. Okay? Is she an anti-Semite? Yes. Is it conscious? No. Does she go out to try and hate Jews? No. Does she have a pre-existing bias about Jews? Yes. So there's 2 types, right? There's Hamas, which hates us and wants us dead. And then there's those who just don't know any better. They've grown up in a very certain environment. They don't know any better. They think we got horns. It's not a bad thing. Someone asked your daughter, it was a roommate. They were probably friends, right? She wasn't saying it from the mean place.
She was the first Jew, Peter.
First
She's
Jew.
aware of.
First Jew she'd ever met that she knew.
First Jew she'd ever met.
Okay? So you don't lump them all together. What's the answer to anybody, though? Educate. Have dialogue. Teach your children to be aware. Please continue, Mike.
Dialogue. Be an active member of
Guys,
the Jewish.
The one thing I have not liked about tonight as much as normal, normally we go around and we read and then we dialogue. This has been more monologue, and it's much better to have dialogue. It's much healthier. That's why I hate texting, because texting is alternating monologues as opposed to dialogue. Okay, go on, please. You got to listen in dialogue.
Be an active member of the Jewish community.
Active member. That doesn't mean you got to give money. Yes, you can. However, we take Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. Do we take American Express? He said, and paper. Look, we got everything.
Discover.
I asked Orlando. He takes care of that. Wait, you're the treasurer. You don't know what we take? Why that's scary?
I'm just throwing it out. I didn't say I don't know.
As Mark said at High Holidays, we'll take your estates, your jewelry, your stock options, and your cryptocurrency. No, look, the reality is be an active member. That means show up and be in kahal, in community. This is powerful. For how many of you tonight, before you showed up here tonight, it's been a really tough couple of days because of what happened? For how many of you have found some healing studying together? That's what happens in a kahal, in a community. The word community comes from the word communitas, meaning a container within which to explore. When you are in a sacred Jewish container, when you're in a community, a kahal, it gives us the opportunity to heal, to be together, and to start to be okay.
Rabbi, I want to share a quick story.
Go, Robert, loudly.
So I have a beloved brother who's 10 years older than me. And on October 9th or 8th, he said that Israel deserved what happened to them. Because, wait, you got to hear the whole story, though, okay? Because stormtroopers went to the Temple Mount. That's what he said. That was on the 8th. Starting about 3 days ago, he started liking my posts. Started sending me videos, pro-Israel videos. Because he's been learning and reading my posts, and he's done a complete 180 in this. So that's the power of education
and dialogue,
hearing
and listening.
And not beating him over the head with a stick. He was just listening to what I had to say.
Yeah, that's how you change things, not by showing up at a demonstration to counter protest. Please continue, Mike. I'm into that.
Attend synagogue services. In our tradition, prayer is an active way of changing the world.
Go to services. Do we have to fill in tomorrow? I didn't even think about that. Do we have?
Yes.
Rabbi,
Okay, yeah.
can I make a comment?
I'd love you to, Mark, because I just thought about the fact I get no sleep tonight. Go ahead.
Explain to me why the Jewish boys at Brandeis University probably went on birthday, were on campus, spoke gospel. Was it the parents' fault? Was it the grandparents' fault? There's going to be anti-Semitism until the Mashiach. I think it's time for Jews in the world to realize we're not going to get on the trains anymore. We're not going to line up for the showers anymore.
Neither should we go looking for war neither more. We don't need to look for it. It comes to us just fine.
Bring it to our doorstep. We're going to give it back to the
Different story.
We're going to give it back to the States.
That's
We
right.
shouldn't have given Gaza up. We shouldn't have given the West Bank up. Israel always concedes to world pressure, and we can't do that.
So I want to just correct something on that.
Tell me about
Repeat that question.
Okay, so he's talking about the fact that Brandeis co-eds being pro-Gaza, and that we should never have given up the land for peace. The idea. Judaism believes that if you save a life, you'll save a world, because we all came from Adam. This is why we are risking 5 IDF soldiers per house or a platoon per building, just in case there's one innocent there. After dropping millions of flyers, making announcements, escorting and opening up escape routes to get them out. Because as Jews, we value a single life so much. Okay?
By the way, Rabbi,
Wait. Even the life of our enemy. Because there's a difference. An enemy can become a friend. Evil cannot be redeemed. And there's a difference.
Why would Israel allow Nasrallah?
Hold on. So, your question of where did we go wrong?
We're always placated.
It's not where we went wrong, Mark. We went wrong because the rabbis aren't being rabbis. Okay? We went wrong because too many rabbis were more concerned with how much money they could get in their salary and courting liberal donors. We went wrong with too many rabbis wanting to be accepted and embraced by their leftist secular friends. We went wrong with too many, as I was talking to a friend today, that the rabbis of Europe in the 19th century, they answered shaylas, they answered questions, they did commentary, they looked at theology, they explored God with their communities. And today's how many rabbis instead are whining and dining 6 or 7 figure donors. Fish stinks from the head. The rabbis I believe, are the single biggest problem of the last century. Okay? And I had a really interesting comment with Rabbi Elijah Shochet. And you guys, how many of you know Shochet? Joel, know how much I love him and admire him. And I was talking to him, this is last week, and I said, Rabbi, I do not understand, because a mentor is a friend, this is a man who only pearls fall from his mouth. I said, I do not understand. I grew up in a Reformed temple. I grew up with Edgar Magnet and Alfred Wolf of blessed memory. How many of you guys knew them? Jack knew them, I know. Okay, especially Alfred, because I was closer with him because of camps. I said, I grew up with men who had knowledge and respect and who were authentically, they were concerned with Judaism more than anything else. And that's Reformed Judaism, what happens? And he said, Michael, that's not Reformed Judaism. He said, you grew up with the exceptions. They weren't concerned with making tikkun olam, and they were concerned with teaching authentic Jewish values in a very American way. But Magnet had more knowledge than most Orthodox rabbis today. And Wolf certainly was a scholar. And I never thought of it that way. He said they were alone in their time. This is what Shochet was saying to me. The rabbis have failed. When the rabbis fail, the families fail. When the families fail, the children fail. And I'm sorry on behalf of all of them. And that's kind of, Mark, why I fight so hard. You know I take on fights, and you know I actually don't like fights at all. I don't like conflict. For those of you who don't know me well, I don't like conflict, do I, somehow? No. I really don't like conflict, and I keep getting thrown into it because you got to do the right thing or get the hell off the pulpit, right or wrong. And so I think that what has failed is American rabbis. And as part of that, then there was no argument from the Jews in academia, even in places like Brandeis. A couple of years ago, roughly 300 rabbinic and cantorial students, how many remember this, wrote a public letter castigating Israel and defending Palestine. Yeah. They all should have been thrown out of their rabbinic schools. And the deans didn't because they didn't want to lose the tuition money. And I talked to one of them about it, and that was his reason. So fish stinks. The teachers of Judaism have failed the Jewish people. Shlomo Carlebach taught the same thing. And we need to not fail the people anymore. Robert, you had a comment. Did that help answer your... Okay, go ahead.
I was going to comment that I think it was Nasrallah's daughter who was very sick and she was accepted into a hospital in Tel Aviv, saved her life, and he still wants to destroy Israel.
Do we care what life we're saving?
No.
We save any life. Save a life, save a world. Yeah, okay. Let's go. We want to finish this. Go ahead.
I just wanted to comment that if you're watching how Israel's going into Gaza, every building they bomb or go into has been identified by satellite as a building that they're firing rockets from. They're not just indiscriminately going through and bombing. And when they go in, they're going in with paramedics behind them. Like you said, you know, the medical attention comes from Israel. And as a matter of fact, before the October 7th, the Ghazians, who were Egyptian, not even Palestinian, they came to work and shop and get medical attention when they crossed the borders. So those aren't checkpoints under occupied Gaza. Israel was not in Gaza.
Okay.
So they're not indiscriminately.
It's not. That's not who we are. Mike, please continue reading. I do try and be conscious. Right.
Combine prayer with action. Don't let anti-Semitism go without a response.
There's an action. Be part of a Jewish community. Be part of a Jewish organization. That's an action. Don't let anti-Semitism be said or done without confronting it. That's an action. Don't show up by trying to say my action is to go show up at a protest and counter-protest and wave my little Israeli flag. That's not an action. That's stupidity. It's foolishness. Faith is always more important and will always triumph over fear, but don't be foolish. Act properly. Go on, please.
The Talmud teaching on seeing a crime committed and doing nothing to stop it is tantamount to being guilty of a crime.
It is our duty to be a light unto the nations, to call out evil, including evil on us and on anyone else. take that duty and that responsibility as what it really is, which is a privilege and a blessing. And please read the last line.
Hiding and try to ignore it has never worked throughout history. The only and best way to fight darkness is to shine a bright light.
You cannot fix this by just hiding in a corner. You cannot fix this by saying, I side with this side. You cannot fix this by saying, oh, Tlaib isn't that bad. Omar, she doesn't really hate us. Hamas really wants peace. They just feel victimized. You got to get out. You got to be a light. So what kind of light should you be? Well, anyone ever look at what the meaning of our temple is? You think it's a coincidence? Ner Simcha, a candle flame, a light of joy. We have to have that joy. We have to have faith. Faith is a choice. Anima amin ba'emuna shlema. I believe in perfect faith in the coming of the Messiah, and even if he shall tarry, I shall still believe, because I choose to. That is the Jewish way. It is our combat. Our path is to combat anti-Semitism and all hate by faith and action, not through fear. And never again is now. That doesn't mean you go looking for a fight. But it also means that we need to make it clear that Kristallnacht will never happen again. Yes, I can hear somebody. It sounds like Mark. All I see is a light. It is Mark. It's just a light.
I was watching some broadcasts tonight, and the news broadcasts were showing what I would consider Hasidic Jews protesting against Israel.
Correct.
Why?
Okay. No. Hold on. First of all, by the way, how many of you realize that Chabad, at its deepest theology, does not accept Israel?
Well, he accepts it now, but initially it did not.
They theologically, it does not. So here's the logic. Okay, Mark? To quote Chaim Potek and the Chosen, Mashiach will bring us to Israel, not Ben Gurion and his thugs. Israel is to be a religious state led by the King Mashiach, Messiah, and having it there as a secular state prohibits Messiah from coming. That is their belief. Okay?
I just have a comment.
They're more useful idiots. Yeah, go on.
Don't they realize that?
Loudly.
Don't they realize, or actually, even liberal Jews, don't they realize that without the state of Israel, none of us would be this free here. None of the other Jews would be this free in any other part of the world. And if Israel was not around,
God forbid.
God forbid, we wouldn't be this free.
Look, the reality is,
It's just
so hell, you're talking. You've made an assumption on their knowledge base. The Jews who are saying Jews for Palestine are unaware of what the history of the region is. They're unaware of the theology. They're unaware of the commitments and philosophy of Hezbollah, of Muslim Brotherhood, of Hamas.
The problem with what Sohel's saying war is, that's what the German Jews said before Hitler. We are safe here, nothing's going to happen to us, and everything. It can happen here. We have to protect ourselves and have knowledge of what the world is doing.
Okay, there's two other things we need to do, though.
There's something I have to, and maybe I'm not being clear.
You mean, why don't they support Israel? The Orthodox?
The point is that just look at today's history, just 19th century, 20th century.
So, Hal, you're asking, no, the answer is, no, they don't realize it.
No, they don't realize. I just had an argument this morning.
So, Hal, the simple answer is no, they don't realize it. Okay?
They say you're wrong.
Here, guys, here's something that's very important. Okay, because I want to finish at 9 and we're always a couple minutes late, and I hate that. We still have discussion, but this is really, again, there's something we need to do tonight as well before everyone leaves. We need to realize two things, or one thing in two ways. We have allies, and we need to embrace our allies, let them embrace us. Okay? There are Christians who are allies. There are some Catholics who are allies. There are all sorts of people who are allies. We need to let them embrace us. And most importantly, we need to understand our biggest ally is God. And if we live a Jewish life, God has made a covenant with us. God will keep that covenant as long as we keep that life. That's why we say, Am Yisrael Chai. People of Israel live. There's something we need to do tonight. I know some people want to leave, and I want to do this at 9 o'clock in a couple minutes. Whatever the circumstances are, Paul Kessler died on Monday. And whatever those circumstances are, which the police will find out, they're good guys. Jerry Perez and Jim Fryoff are really good men. They're doing the right thing. Let them do their job. Whatever the circumstances may or may not have been, he died. And why do we say Kaddish for someone? Does the person who died need Kaddish? No. When I say Kaddish for my father, Alex, you say Kaddish for your father? No. Do you say who says Kaddish for the father? Okay. Say Kaddish for your father, Alex? Do you think he needs it? So why do we say it? For us, right? So that we remember who we are, why we are, what we're here to do. And that includes being strong and being clear and not being aggressive. It means being clear and being part of a community. It means being aware of the past so we can lead to the future. Because Israel, as an example, exports a future. We are always looking to the future, not to the past. We remember the past so we can build upon it to make the future. And Paul's death, who was a member of this community up until the pandemic, Paul's death can easily be used by either or both sides of this argument to create a fire that can become an inferno, God forbid, to spread around the country. So we say Kaddish, not it's in his honor. It's not because it makes him better. We say Kaddish because it makes us better. And so I'd like everyone to please rise for a second as we say Kaddish. For him and for all those who have died, especially the IDF soldiers, especially the 1,400 plus civilians. We say Kaddish for all those who have died, that this world becomes a better place. If you know it, please join me. Yikadav Yikadash Shemei Rabbah. Yamad Yivrach Yeruteh V'Yam Lich Malchuteh. V'chayachonu V'yom Achonu V'chayei L'chol Beis Yisrael. V'agalav B'zman Kari V'emru. Amen. Yesh Shemei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam U'Lalamei Almaya. Yiprach V'Yishtabach V'Yitpar V'Yitromam V'Yitnaseh. V'Tadar V'Dalei V'Lol. Shemei Kedusha B'Richu. La'ela Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata Tushbachata V'Nechamata. Tamiran V'Yama V'Emru. Amen. Yesh Lama Rabbah Min Shemaya V'Chaim. Aleinu. V'Al Yisrael V'Emru. Amen. Osei Shalom V'Mrumav V'Yasei Shalom. Aleinu V'Al Yisrael. V'Gama Kol Ha'olam. V'Emru. Amen. May the one who ordains peace in the earth bring peace upon these souls, upon this community, upon this nation, upon Israel, and Kol Ha'olam, and upon all of the world. And together we say, Amen. I hope this was valuable for everyone. We can hang out and still do things that everyone wants. Please take these handouts with you. Use them. And I hope to see, how many are coming tomorrow night? How many are bringing friends? Bring everyone you can. We need them. Thank you, guys.